Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Kahnversations. My name is Ryan Bailey. Welcome to a new season of Kahnversations. We have a bunch of podcasts coming at you. Just a couple things up top before we get started. Leslie did a podcast recently. If you want to hear her voice and hear what she says, she speaks brilliantly on this podcast by one of the most amazing managers in Los Angeles, Barry Katz. It's called Industry Standard. It's 2 parts. It is so worth checking out. So guys, please download that if you get a chance. And also, if you're interested in finding anything else about Leslie, about classes, about coaching, about putting yourself on tape, anything, please give us a call at 323-969-9900, or you can check us out on the web at www.lesliekahn.com. Okay, so now that that's all out of the way, I am so beyond excited for who this podcast is with today. Through some kind of weird luck, Leslie went to didn't go to high school, but actually did a speech competition with this actor, and they got into contact. And he asked, "Hey, would you like me to come talk to your students?" And then she also got him to do a podcast on top of that. So he came about a month and a half ago, and it was one of the best afternoons here at Leslie's. He inspired me. He inspired all of the students. Today's guest is Neil Flynn. Now, Neil Flynn is an actor, a comedian, a voice actor. You will remember him as the janitor on the NBC show Scrubs. Most recently, he did 9 seasons on the ABC comedy series The Middle, and he's already got a new sitcom lined up for NBC entitled Abby that's going to, I think, premiere in 2019. He's just such a good guy. He started off in improv in Chicago. Just a very inspiring person and actor. And guys, this is what I mean when I talk about people that stay the course. Now, sometimes people, us as actors, we get disappointed that it's not all here right now. But sometimes if we just stay in it, and keep working, keep our head down, things start to happen. And I think Mr. Flynn's career is such a great example of that. Of course, you obviously have to be brilliant on top of it, but, we're all brilliant in our own ways. So I don't know. Enjoy this conversation. It was one of my favorites. Guys, if you do have any comments or anything, or if you want to leave us a review on iTunes, that always helps. My email address is ryan@lesliekahn.com, so feel free to reach out. But without further ado, Mr. Neil Flynn.
How you doing, Ryan?
Good, very good. I'm so excited because when I started improvising, Beer Shark Mice was kind of the huge thing for like young improvisers. I remember being at Improv Olympic when it first opened, and it was Paul Valancourt, and it was a really
on, Santa Monica.
Yeah. And it was such a huge thing, and I remember us young improvisers at the time, we just didn't. We were like, how do you do that? How do you do that? But you started doing that because you're from Chicago, right?
Yes, it's an odd way to put the sentence. I stared improvising because I'm from Chicago.
Well, it seems like every good improviser kind of has roots in Chicago.
It is sort of a hotbed of improv, Chicago is. And I'm from Chicago. I lived out here for a while and, trying to succeed as an actor and failing at that. Moved back to Chicago and then tried improvising for the first time. So I was like 30 or 31 or 32, which is old to try that. Because most people, these days, people do it in college and stuff, probably high school for all I know. So when I started in Chicago, I was older than most of the people, but I'm glad I eventually tried it because it turned out to be something I had a knack for.
Yeah.
And, it kind of led to things.
Yeah.
I had never tried to be funny before then, although some improv teachers would tell you a cardinal rule is don't try to be funny, but you know what I mean. And I had been an actor, but more of a dramatic type. And not that I wasn't hysterical in real life, but I had never tried to perform comedy really before. And So it was a great turn of events.
So we talk on this podcast. We've kind of noticed that you either come to acting a couple different ways. You were just out of the womb performing and acting, or you got to high school and you were on like a football team and you got injured and you started acting, or you were in speech and debate and that like got you really passionate, or you're just really great looking. Which one was it for you?
Great looking.
Yeah, no. And guys, I know you're not seeing the images, but he is a beautiful man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're comfortable discussing.
Yeah. We met for like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, but it was our first thought for both of us. I think. What a beautiful man.
Say your first thought.
I was as a kid. Yes, I was doing school plays and stuff as a kid. So it always interested me, and did the plays in high school and speech team, and continued into college. And a couple of years of college, I didn't do any plays. I wasn't a theater major. And then I wandered over there and tried that. And even with just a couple of years passing between having been on stage, I had a new appreciation for it. And I really enjoyed it enough that when I finished college, I thought, maybe I'll give this a try.
That's such a huge decision, isn't it?
Yes and no. I've said before that it's kind of it's a rich kid's game or a poor kid's game. If you got plenty of money, you have nothing to worry about. If you have no money, you got nothing to lose. Trying to be an actor was not a big decision. It was,
but if you're trying to get by and just have like a middle class living, it is a horrible profession to jump into.
That's right. So it was just something that, fortunately, being from Chicago, there is an acting world there, and you can make your living. There's a lot of theater there, non-paying and paying, but you can get your feet wet with a lot of storefront theaters. And there's also the world of commercials and film and television a little bit.
Yeah,
obviously nowhere near what LA has, but enough that you can get a taste of it, and at least see if you are capable of being in consideration.
Did you get that feeling that you were in consideration almost immediately, or did you ever struggle with nerves or self-doubt?
No, not the nerves thing. That would be, I have one story about that came later in my career. But no, I was fairly confident early on, and that comes from a lot of it from being approved of. I think if you're not being met with rejection, if you're being accepted, it's pretty easy to be confident, at least on that level.
Yeah.
When you reach each higher level, you're uncertain of yourself and maybe a little nervous. But I was cast in things without much trouble early on, and so I had a little bit of confidence. And then the next step is you want to get paid. That's a little different.
Yeah.
When they're going to pay you, it's a little. You're not as likely to be chosen. But enough. I would say that I found my level that I was definitely in. What's the word for that? Accepted. And so on.
In that echelon of actors that are.
But yes. But that level wasn't the highest level, even in Chicago.
Did you even dream of levels? I mean, or are you just like, oh, this is great right now? I'm shocked.
It was, but then you look around and you see that someone is on a commercial, or someone was in some movie, and you think, oh, and the idea of residuals appears, and you think, I didn't realize that was a thing. And so you start, looking a little higher, and of course it becomes more difficult. And so there was a time, probably too early for me, in my 20s, that because of the girlfriend I had, she wanted to come out to LA, and so I came out with her and gave it a try, and had the rude awakening that it was a level that was not accepting of me.
Yeah. And did you realize that immediately, or did you slog through a couple of years of just getting beaten down?
Both. I realized it immediately, but still slogged through. And it made it easier when the relationship with the girlfriend ended. I stuck around for a little bit longer. I was here for a total of 5 years, maybe.
Yeah.
And just thought I have to go reassess. Take a strategic retreat, because it's like we're getting killed out there, man. Let's pull it in, head back to the fort, and figure out a new
before
way
you
to
get
approach
obliterated
this.
completely
Yes.
and not want to even be a step anywhere.
That's right. Well, I left with a shred of self-esteem.
So you went back and regrouped in Chicago.
Yeah.
So Leslie tells a story, and she'll tell it. By the way, Mr. Flynn is here. He's nice enough to do this podcast, and then he's talking to actors in Leslie's Friday class today. And Leslie is going to hit you with the story of she's not remembering if she beat you or you beat her in some kind of speech and debate forensics. Which, by the way, in my research, I think you beat her. I think you.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah, and I was like, well, Leslie, it says right here. Well, who knows? It's so long ago.
But it's so many years.
long.
It's really winning, losing. What's
But
the
you
difference?
you guys you and your partner did a scene from Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. Is that correct?
Yes.
And she just said she remembers meeting you once and had the most fun time. And but that she talks about her days in Chicago very lovingly. So you did speech and debate or forensics. You went to school in Illinois, and then. Were you? Because I read that you were doing theater at like the Goodman and Steppenwolf and things like that, which are two of like amazing theaters in Chicago.
The Goodman was before heading to L.A., and then when I went back, I did a couple shows at Steppenwolf, and I was thrilled. That was a thing. They were kind of just starting when I was young, but I knew of them. Come to think of it, I went with my dad to see a production of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead because me and my partner were performing that, and I'd never seen it live. And we went to a church basement in Highland Park, Illinois. It's a suburb of Chicago, and happens to be where Leslie's from, I believe.
Exactly, yeah.
And this upstart group called the Steppenwolf Theater Company was putting on Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and they couldn't have been out of their mid-20s, early 20s. And then, of course, within a few years, by the time I was out of college and in Chicago, which would have been about 5 years later, they were huge.
Yeah.
And, people were becoming movie stars, and they were going to Broadway. And so everyone in Chicago that was a young actor wanted to dream.
It kind of energized that whole aspect of being an actor in Chicago.
Yes. And you wanted to hope that someday you might work at Steppenwolf. And so when I got hired there, I was thrilled and saw it as a if this is as far as I got, at least I got this.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And so that was a thrill to work at Steppenwolf.
When did improvisation come into play in Chicago for you?
Just before the Steppenwolf work. I went back and forth between theater and improv. If I could get hired in a play, I would do that and leave the improv world for a while. But almost right away, because a man named Del Close started the Improv Olympic along with Sharna Halpern, and I did a play with him.
You actually did a play with Del Close. And guys, if you don't know, I know a lot of you do, but if you don't know, please look up Del Close. Please research. This man was like a truly unique individual and created an amazing form that is still, that it will be taught forever, but just one of the most interesting people I've ever read about.
Yeah, he was a unique man, led a unique life, and accomplished this thing that the big argument was among him and the Second City people and so on was whether improv was a form of entertainment on its own or if it was just a means to an end, improvising in order to develop a sketch sort of thing.
Yeah.
People didn't believe that improvising in front of an audience was worth anything. And Del helped to create, because there had to be some form, and he came up with some discipline so that a group of people could take a suggestion and just improvise, and it would be entertaining and worth the price of a ticket. They did a play called Hamlet, I believe is what it was.
Okay, guys, if you've never heard of that, please look up. It's a fascinating.
Yes. This is Danish prince named of Hamlet, and this is in the mid '80s, and Del Close played Polonius, and so I knew who he was. We knew who each other were, and when after going out to L.A. and failing and coming back to Chicago, I saw the name Improv Olympic on a sign upstairs of a bar, and I thought, I remember that place. And having nothing better to do and starting over in Chicago, I went and saw a show, and they were a small enough deal back then that the owner, Sharna, was always there and basically tried to recruit every audience member to take classes. And And so I did, and it worked.
Yeah.
And, within a year, I was on stage, every weekend night.
And is that where you met like David Koechner and all of those guys?
I'll name drop a little bit. I ended up within a year, I would say, I was on a team of, it happened to be just 6 males, although Rachel Dretsch played with us every once in a while, who went on to SNL and so on. And thus begins the name dropping.
Guys, buckle in.
Yes, yeah. But those 6 guys were Ali Faranakian, who now runs a improv school in New York, Miles Stroth, who runs one here, Ian Roberts and Matt Besser, who are 2 of the founders of the UCB, and Adam McKay, who has gone on to write and direct many successful movies. So I was in with a good bunch, and I think...
Did you know they're a good bunch immediately, or in retrospect, you're like, what a great group of guys?
Well, in retrospect, it's kind of crazy that because the odds are really against people succeeding like that. But at the time, we knew that we were, talented or entertaining improvisers. But it just so happened that, right behind us, like say, if we were considered seniors, the junior class included Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. They had made their way to Chicago. And I could name more.
Yeah.
If I,
it seems like for like a decade, people were just
that's where they were
Chicago.
going. Yeah, that's where they were heading, and I think everyone sort of helped each other. And I was in New York. Another name drop coming. I was in New York last week and saw Seth Meyers. He greeted me warmly, and I forgot that I knew him. But it was from Chicago back in the day. But he was like a sophomore when I was a senior, if we're using that analogy. And so I forgot that I knew him. Enough time has passed that I thought I knew him from late night television. But no, I knew him from Chicago improvising.
Well, it's like you go to those theaters, or you even go to, and you see the pictures of the old teams and all the people that you recognize, and it's like it does kind of take on this hallowed ground sense, especially if you're like a young improviser. There's just this like, whoa, look at all the people that came before. Like it's a really special thing, I think, about improvisation. But so you started getting up on stage at Improv Olympic. Was that part of like kind of gaining your confidence back, getting your mojo back?
You mean from the beat down in LA?
From the beat down in LA, yeah.
Yes, and it was in a different, not venue, but a different
form,
a different path, and so I found myself all of a sudden employed at Second City, which I had, of course, known what it was growing up in Chicago, but I never imagined I'd work there. I've always known who the Chicago Bears were too, but I never thought I'd...
Please tell me the next year, and then the next year I joined the Bears.
Next year I know. I'm on the defensive line. But no, that was a kick. That was something I never thought would happen. And so my point of bringing that up is that all of a sudden I was kind of credentialed as a funny performer, whereas I just hadn't been before. I hadn't pursued it, and maybe I wouldn't have been capable of it before. But so then as it turns out, when I came back to LA, I would just as often get cast as a guest on a sitcom as I would on a dramatic show. And so I had that sort of, whatever analogy you want to use, arrow in my quiver or something.
Yeah, it was in your toolkit. You had
in my toolkit. That's a good way of putting it. And as it turns out, that's the door that opened for me for a long-term thing when Scrubs came along.
So what was the final decision? And actually, I'm going to give LA another crack after...
It just felt like the right time after 5 years, I want to say. Maybe 6. Yeah, 92 to 98. I was in Chicago the second time. And it just seemed like I'd not exactly accomplished everything I could accomplish, but it just felt like...
You were doing a lot of... because what I remember you from as was The Fugitive. You were killed by the one-armed man. And also... If you look at his resume, it's a huge resume, but it seems like for a time, if there was a police officer role, you were either going to audition for it or you were going to get it.
Yeah, well, thank goodness. For someone kind of kidded me a little about that, like, aren't you glad that's over or something like this. The opposite. I thank God there were policeman roles, so I could get hired. I would do it forever. I'm surprised I'm not playing a cop now on
Abbey, right? Yeah,
or something. you two get in my office. You know, I'm getting too old for this.
Yes,
crap.
you could. Yeah, you could sergeant. You could just keep moving up the ranks.
That
Yeah,
sort of thing. Yes, that's what. So thank goodness I was able to. It turns out there's a high percentage of film or TV projects have a cop character appear somehow.
Yeah.
And thank goodness I was able to do it a dozen times or more.
Yeah, I mean, you even did it on Seinfeld, right? And that was one of my favorite episodes, The Summer of George. It seemed like I was just like, oh my God, he's been that. I was like, I didn't realize how much I recognized you from. And this is another thing I freaked out about because I'm a huge geek for this movie Magnolia, and they do this thing in the beginning, and it's like this really great opening.
It's a really cool opening.
It's like a 13-minute opening or something, but they talk about. Anyways, there's this really cool, like, I don't know, it's like kinetoscope, like he shot it this really weird way, Paul Thomas Anderson, but it's black and white, and it's. I didn't even realize that was you.
Well, it's pretty hard to tell.
Well, but it's like Pat Healy, you.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I just geeked out because I was
forgot Pat Healy was another one of those guys. Yeah, it's black and white, heavily shadowed.
Yeah.
And I don't speak.
There's like flicker, like the way he shot it is all these flickering.
Yeah, well, this is like an old timey moment.
Yeah.
The whole thing, my thing takes, I don't know, 10 or 20 seconds, but I was glad to be part of the movie. But yeah, it's funny that. I mean, I appreciate that you appreciate that.
No, you just go over a resume and you just geek out. Yeah.
I don't have any lines in that.
But it's like just to even be a part of that, it's like, oh, cool. Like I thought that was one of the best films of 1999. So anyways, you come out here, and then what's changed? Is there anything different when you get out here the second time?
I think it was me that was different. I think as it turns out, and you don't know this as a person trying to be an actor anyway. Maybe it applies more largely to life in general, but you don't know that you're more likely to be cast in your 30s and 40s, say, than in your 20s.
If you can hang in.
If you can hang in. You don't know that. You don't know that if you're working in your teens and 20s, you don't know that if you had a crystal ball, guess what? That well dries up and you're uncastable in your 30s and 40s. You don't know. And I think as it turned out, I was more castable as an adult than as a young man, and
when you were going out for young men roles, did you? I mean, like you just said, you don't really have an awareness of that. Did you understand why you weren't getting cast at that time?
Yes, I think so. Well, for one thing, I wasn't. What you'd call a handsome kid, what people that I think it's rare that a young actor is not a very good-looking actor who's very successful. That I could be wrong about that, and maybe it's changing. But you may young people. I'm talking about teenagers in early 20s. You might have character types: the geek, the nerd, the fat kid, or something. But otherwise, but not the interesting looking. Very good looking. It tends to be the quarterback and the cheerleader that are the leads in movies. So no, I wasn't. I never looked like that. So I wasn't. And if it's not that, there's not that many parts in movies and stuff for someone who's 25 years old. If it's not a significant part.
Yeah.
So that's part of it too. But no, I was never. That was one of those when I was talking about sort of a level you reach and a wall you hit. I definitely knew and. That I had hit a wall and didn't think I was being robbed or anything. I didn't see things and think I should have played that role because
you didn't get bitter.
No, frustrated but not bitter. And I knew that I'm taller than most people, and that's not an advantage. So I figured I just had to wait for the right door to open and be prepared.
And so then you came out here and you realized kind of like I'm at a better point. I'm older.
Yes, I was being cast as like parents and things like that, or like the boss, which was never. But it's because I was whatever. It was like 40.
Do you remember the first audition that you had? That was a little different.
There was a show called Arliss on HBO many years ago. He was a sports agent, and I read for the manager of the baseball team, I guess, and they said, "Why don't you read the GM?" And slid me over some different sides. The general manager. I said, "The general manager of a baseball team? These guys are old or adult or something." I didn't see that. That's when I saw. And then I got cast as that and was in a suit and for the shoot, and that was the first time I thought, "Oh, I guess I can be perceived as a functioning adult, a responsible adult with an important job, or with a teenage child.
Yeah.
It's one of these shows that ended up in a courtroom scene. Our son was on trial for something, but the same thing. I felt like I was play acting. Well, I guess I was, but because I was maybe 42 or something, and thinking, this is crazy. I'm playing a man. And I just
I've never thought of
myself. No.
I live with myself every day, and I'm not a man. Yeah.
I know. Well, plus I don't have kids. I never had kids.
Yeah.
So you lose track of exactly how, if your kid is in high school, then college, then married or something, you realize that you're getting older. But what was your? I mean, now it seems like I don't know how many rooms, if any, you have to go into anymore and win something over. But what was your process back in the day for preparing for an audition? As much as possible, know your lines. It can only help you. And if you're unfamiliar, you're just reading off a page, and that's not going to work. Keep the pages in your hand, even if you do know your lines. But make some choices that, at least one, that you think no one else is going to make, so that you stand out. If you can act, it'll show. If you can play the part, you're not necessarily going to get cast, but it doesn't mean that they don't think you could. They just cast someone else, because a lot of people are trying to get this job. And also the casting director's job is to provide choices. And so there might be someone 6 feet tall and someone 3 feet tall and someone that weighs 100 pounds and weighs 400 pounds as options for the director or whoever else is making the decisions. And so if you're not cast, it doesn't mean that they didn't think you could do it. They just chose someone else who could also do it.
And hopefully you've done good enough that you made a fan and they keep bringing you in.
Yes. That's, I wish I could remember the show, but I did some show, like you audition, I guess is what you're supposed to say, for something, and if they don't give it to you, maybe they have you back. Like maybe it was a Drew Carey show or something.
Yeah.
You don't get the first audition, but they have you back another time.
Yeah.
And yes, okay, they cast you for that one. Then down the line, those people who were doing the casting, they have different jobs too. They move on to another show.
Yeah.
And they might remember you. And in this case, if I have the specifics right, the casting directors from Drew Carey moved on to cast for Scrubs and called me in, and it worked out.
Now, so you everything was kind of a little different, or you were feeling different, and you were steadily booking, I'm guessing, some guest stars and little things here and there that
Probably
were
3 or 4 things a year, maybe.
Did you have a regular job? Did you?
Not at that point, no.
Yeah.
I was able to, but it was because of cobbling together things like maybe a voiceover job here and there. At that point, those residuals start making a difference.
And residuals actually meant something back. I mean, like they still do, of course. But there was a time, like I remember commercial residuals 20 years ago was insane compared to what they are now.
I was never much of a commercial guy. Not meaning that I didn't care for it. It was that I wasn't really a good choice. No one wanted me in their commercial, basically. But yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
if you could get a national commercial, you were set for a year.
Yeah, exactly.
I had to do no other job. I had that same girlfriend I mentioned had I think it was like extra gum or something, but it ran for a year, and it made, I don't know, let's say $50,000 or something.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's a year's way. That's all you need for a year.
Yeah, and I understand, and I say it from a distance because, like I said, I was never much included in commercials, but that has all but dried up. And most commercials are now on cable, and you only get a fraction of what used to be
every
paid.
3 months you get a fraction of what, it's very, very different than what it once was.
Yeah. Unless you can be like the spokesman for something. Or,
yes. And then it's all bets are off. But so you were kind of cobbling things together. And then, of course, like you said, you get to, this was supposed to be my first question, but I was literally like going over this and I was like, what's it like? I think you're only one of 10 people as an actor that have worked consistently for 18 years. Like that's going to be, what does that feel like?
Well, I'm very aware of my good fortune, and I have not stopped being grateful for being allowed into the party. I was outside hoping to get in for a very long time.
Yeah.
I saw it both ways. And so I'm completely appreciative. And I realized that along with, you need some ability, but you need luck. No question about it. You need luck. I didn't stay on TV for all those years because of how good I was or whatever. I stayed on because the shows stayed on. And I was good enough, let's say, I'll give myself that much credit, to get on the show. But then I was lucky enough for the show to stay on the air. That had very little to do with me. There are plenty of good actors on shows that just don't take off. I'm doing a show after this one. We'll start in September shooting, and that might disappear after half a year.
Yeah,
it could go for 5 years, or it could be canceled before one is done.
Yeah,
you never know.
Do you remember the day you got because what I read, I don't know if this is true, that you were originally going to audition for Dr. Cox, or you did audition for Dr. Cox initially for Scrubs, and then is that true?
Yes, and Bill Lawrence, who was running the audition, who created the show, and who I had met years ago, it turns out, he said, "Great, glad you came in." Well, I said, "Thanks for calling me in." He said, "I didn't call you in. You were on the list." But I might have, but you were on the list already. So I felt good about that. And he said, "I got to tell you, you're not getting this part. I already know the actor I'm going to offer it to." And he meant John McGinley. And he said, "But do you want to read this?" And he handed me a piece of paper, and it had 3 or 4 lines on it as the janitor. And I read it, and he goes, "Good. You want to do it?" I said, "Of course. Yeah, it's a day's work. In the pilot episode." And so at that
So
point,
they didn't say recurring or anything like that?
No,
It was
no.
just...
no promises whatsoever, including after having done the pilot. Then the pilot goes and becomes a series, and then I was just in the first one, and then, what do you know? They wrote me into the second one, too.
Because that first scene was the elevator scene with Zach Braff.
The sliding door.
Yeah, okay, yes. Yeah, so,
About a penny in the door.
Exactly, yeah.
Sort of thing. Yeah.
I'm waiting for someone.
The door is broke. It'll be 5th time or so. It don't open.
Maybe there's a penny stuck in there.
Why a penny?
I don't know.
Did you stick a penny in there?
No, I was just making small talk.
If I find a penny in there, I'm taking you down. Well, the good thing is that, again, skill and luck combined, let's say. Bill wrote a good scene. I was able, along with Zach, to play it well enough that they thought they'd use that character again. And, so for the first season, I was never promised to be on the next week or any other show ever, any other episode, but it just happened to be that I did all of them.
So it was like, oh, cool, I'm coming back again. Oh, cool, I'm coming back again.
Yes. And then in between seasons, they somebody suggested that. Hang on, my phone's ringing. Very, very bad.
He's getting a job right
my part.
now.
Yes. What? I'll take it. So in between seasons, it was someone's idea to push to try to get me a contract. I don't. Maybe it was my agent. I don't recall being that much involved. But the concern was that I would be cast on something else, and since I wasn't tied to Scrubs, and so whoever it was, haggled back and forth, and eventually they agreed that I was sort of well, I'm not going to complain about the money, but it wasn't in the budget to add another regular character.
Yeah.
Is the idea. So at a reduced rate, I nevertheless got a contract to be a regular on the show, in every episode. And I tell you, this to me is somewhat interesting. When I got that call, they said, "Okay, it's done. You're in. You have a contract. You're working." It's the first time I'd ever.
And is this the second season? Or is this
before the second season started. And wonderful. That's great news. And I hung up the phone, and the first thing I felt was, might try to fill in the blank. Like, did you cry? Did you jump up and down? Did you yell? I felt tired. I put down the phone like I was putting down a shield and a spear. I was so tired. Because I was at that point 40 years old.
Yeah, this is what this feels like? Yeah.
Yes. Well, I've been trying for so long with only, small
drips
bits
and
of encouragement,
yeah.
or little snacks, just enough to keep you going up the hill. And then you're promised, don't worry about it. You got a year of not worrying about it. And so obviously it was very good news. I was very happy about that. And then, the show went for 7 more years.
Yeah, and you were a huge part of that show. I mean, in fact, like I was just mentioning to you guys earlier about the Fugitive, there is a great episode where Zach Braff's character I mean, you possibly could have been playing Neil Flynn because you admit that you are the person that was in The Fugitive as the cop.
Yes, the fans online had several go-rounds about that.
Oh, yeah. Like, there's like
they
message boards about it.
Yeah, because on the show, they never said the character's name.
Yeah.
So people were saying, his name is Neil Flynn because he was in the movie. And, yeah, they told me about that in the summer between whatever it was, seasons 2 and 3 or whatever, that they're going to show a clip from The Fugitive and me on there. And I just thought, that's just so crazy. It's so meta, whatever. How can you...
You're an actor.
You're a fireman. What are we doing?
Game over, Klaus. I saw you in The Fugitive.
Oh, yeah. I was in a Harrison Ford movie, but you know what? I chose this life instead because it's a little more glamorous.
Hey, champ, there's some vomit on the back steps with your name on it.
Well, that's my cue. Action!
You know why I wanted that to be you in The Fugitive? Because me and used to be a guy who had dreams and ambitions. And even though things didn't work out the way you'd hoped, at least it'll explain why you are the way you are and make you human. But instead, it turns out you're nothing more than a jerk that just likes to mess with people for no reason.
Kimbo! You tell anybody, I'll kill you.
And then afterwards, I realized one episode of one TV show, and it just became. And if anything, it's just something like you remember it, and you talk to it. It doesn't throw you for a loop or anything. What in the world's going on? It was just an extraordinary thing, and I had a small part on the show, but it was so different than the other parts that it got some attention. And it was great.
I don't know if this is true either, but I was reading that they sometimes wouldn't even. They would write a scene, but they wouldn't sometimes write you dialogue.
Well, this is what I was saying was, if you're not working or not succeeding big time, in the meantime, just prepare for when you get a chance. And yes, before, when I mentioned Bill Lawrence, who created the show, before he created the show, he saw me in a improvised show. Somehow, a friend of a friend, he was there. So he knew I could improvise, and that wasn't his world at all. It was a little bit of a, magic to him. And so from the get-go on Scrubs, he'd say, and then, if you think of something else to say, just say that,
Yeah.
If you think of something better, he's a very self-effacing guy for the very capable comedy writer he is. He's very open, and because I could improvise, because I had learned how to do this thing, and because he knew it, he allowed me to do it. And there were many instances of what ended up on the TV screen was not what was written. But that's thanks to the great freedom that he gave me. And we would do it as written, always. And then just
a freebie.
Yeah. Can we try one where we do this or that? And a couple times, this is the story the writers like to tell, that a couple times literally the script said, janitor's line is whatever Neil says. that is true. A couple times that happened. Which, I was...
It's a lot of pressure.
Not really. I appreciated that freedom, but after a while I wondered if they weren't just getting lazy.
Yeah.
Or maybe they got resentful because I never ended up saying what they wrote
Friday.
anyway.
Let's go home. He can do it.
He'll come up with something.
Yeah. What did you learn over the years of starting to of doing something on a regular basis? Like you had a regular job. Is there any kind of knowledge that started coming with that, or things that you noticed, that you took on to the middle, or?
I wonder. There must be.
Yeah.
You can't possibly not be learning.
Or what did you notice from people coming in, like the guest stars and stuff like that? Were there any kind of mental notes of I remember when I was a guest star, you should always, when you're walking in as a stranger on a set, you probably have seen a lot of different things.
Yeah, that is true. Sometimes you see a guest performer not doing anything bad, but sometimes you're just thinking that's not necessary. You don't have to, but you don't. You keep your mouth shut. I'll give you a quick example. When if they mess up halfway through their line, which is no big deal. Everybody does. You don't want to as a guest. You want to be perfect, but no one thinks anything unless it happens over and over. No one thinks that's a big deal because the main actors are going to screw up at some point in the same scene. You don't, like you would on stage, fight your way through the line and finish anyway, because it doesn't matter. They're never going to use that.
Stay in. Yeah.
Right. Hang in there and try to make sense of it for the audience.
A 1 line turned into 10 lines. Yeah.
You don't have to do that. In fact, you don't even have to. Don't have to do anything except go back to the beginning of your line and start over. That's if the camera's pointing at you. If the camera's not, don't even go back. It doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
We're not seeing you right now, so just it doesn't matter. But I would have done the same thing. Every once in a while, someone isn't prepared with their lines, and apparently just underestimated how important that is. And I'll tell you what, I learned that myself. As the janitor, I didn't have a lot of lines, and oftentimes, as you just said, I kind of made it up anyway. But then I went to something that was quite strict in terms of, say the lines the way they're written, and I had a lot more lines. And so, like halfway through the first season, I was working hard, like in between setups or in between scenes, going back, making sure that you know the lines and so on and so on. And I realized this is not the way to do it. At night, the night before you're shooting the scene, learn your lines. And if you can, over the weekend, get familiar with the whole script. Knowing your lines is the biggest favor you could do to yourself, because otherwise it's very difficult.
Yeah.
And then there's pressure. If you can't get it right, then there's the pressure's mounting, the clock is ticking. Do everyone a favor and know your lines.
Yeah, we had the late actor James Gandolfini come in and speak to us a couple years ago, and he had worked with Leslie for a bit, and he said when he first got Sopranos, he wasn't used to leading a show,
right.
And so that would be like what he would film all day, and then at night he just paid somebody to just run lines with him because he had to come back the next day, and he never wanted the crew to ever see him sweat. He wanted them to always think that he knew exactly what he was doing, that he was completely prepared, but he would go home and it was just like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. So much dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
But he did all that so he could present this kind of unified front with production.
I like that. That and he pulled it off to great success, but it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
The acting part isn't all that hard, but you don't.
But it's about making it look easy and like a comfortability that we recognize ourselves in what we're watching.
Yeah. And the plain work of memorizing something every day.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, you have more work to do when the workday ends. If you're an actor who has lines in every episode of a TV show, every day you have to learn those lines. And, at times, is it hard? Is it easy? It's hard to say. Compared to breaking rocks, it's not hard. But
it does seem to be the first thing that any of like your relatives, if you're an actor,
sure.
like they're always just like,
how do you
do it? Like that's the number one thing.
Yes, it is. And you get used to it. But on the other hand, I bet you there are some people whose careers didn't go where they wanted it to, and one of the reasons was they couldn't remember lines. And I don't mean necessarily, on the set, they couldn't remember the lines, and the director said, "Get out of my town, you'll never work because you can't remember your lines." It doesn't happen like that. What more likely happens is you don't audition well because you don't know the words well enough, and so you never even get the chance. And that's it. I wonder if there's a profession of someone who helps people learn lines.
Well, yeah, or even getting over. Or what is those in sports, like the sports psychologists? Kind of like getting out of. Well, and that's what we do a little bit of here is trying to get out of your own way and have good actor thoughts instead of bad actor thoughts. Which bad actor thoughts are just, I don't know my line, instead of just trying to think the character thoughts. Can
I now insert? I said I had one occasion where nerves played a role.
Yes.
I will insert it here. As far as a sports psychologist or I could have been a star, but I couldn't remember my lines, or I could have, but this or that. I had a chance where I was testing for something, which means you're at the final round of casting for a TV show, and I was as nervous as I've ever been in my life, and I didn't perform well, and they didn't cast me, and they shouldn't have because I wasn't very good because I was too nervous. That could have been my stumbling block. That could have been the wall that I never got past I could have been great, but I got too nervous at the final auditions, and well, that counts. Sorry, but you might as well, I could have been a star, but I, have 3 eyes or anything. That's just a legitimate thing. That's on you. I'm sorry, but if you get too nervous, you either figure it out or too bad. That's not good enough. You have to figure out a way not to be, or else you're not going to succeed here. If a starting pitcher has the same thing, see, I can throw 90, but I get really nervous, so forgive me or give me a chance anyway or something. You just have to say, I'm sorry. That takes you out of the running because other people can do this without that flaw. So fortunately, that wasn't a permanent wall.
Yeah, like how do you even get over that experience then? Because you're like, the next time is my body going to show up,
Well, you know what? In my case, you get your next job by the guy just offering you a piece of paper. Can you read this and do the pilot? And then you're in every episode. And then the second season they make you a regular and you never had to test.
So guys, that is specifically how you do it.
Yes.
So that is specifically what you need to do. That's insane. Wow.
Well, that counts as luck, doesn't it?
Okay, so Scrubs is like 170 episodes, I think 9 seasons, and it even like went to ABC at one point at the very end, and it was Scrubs interns. But you did like halfway through, were you starting to be like, could I do something bigger? Could I do another character? I mean, how or were you just like, I'll stay here till the wheels fall off this?
Yeah, more the second one. I was so happy to be there. I suppose at some point, anything could grow tiresome, regardless of how, maybe the king gets tired of being the king. I don't know, but no, I never grew frustrated. Not that I recall at all. I always got to do fun things. In fact, you said play a different character, maybe 3 or 4 times. Maybe I did do something else.
Yeah.
Or at least pretended to be my own brother at one point.
Yeah.
And what I got to do was so fun with so little of the hard work involved, with the other characters carrying plot and so on. And I would just show up and do something unusual for a minute and a half, and that was my job. No,
and you were also you were still doing improv at the time, right? Or were you still doing live performance? And and also this is so a lot of girls that I talk to,
I'm listening.
Well, the big thing that is you were Lindsay Lohan's dad in Mean Girls. They're like, oh, they had Mean Girls. Like they have an affinity for that movie that is out of this world.
Yeah. I have learned that over time. If someone recognizes me, approaches me, based on their, age, gender,
you're
so
sizing
I know
them
what
up
they're
as
going
they
to. Yes, and I learned years ago that if it's a young girl, it's Mean Girl.
Yeah.
And they never.
Which, by the way, they just opened a Broadway musical of Mean Girls.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's Tina Fey wrote the script, and her husband Jeff Richmond, who used to play the piano at the Improv Olympic back in Chicago, he wrote the music for it. He's a very, very talented.
Yeah, and he also did all the music on 30 Rock,
Yeah,
which is really unique. And so you were actually doing like movies and things like that in between seasons of Scrubs.
Yeah, a little bit. I've never. If something comes up, I do it, but I don't pursue it much, and it's because I suspect it would be frustrating, and maybe I'd feel, the way I did 20 years ago of just, they're not picking me. And why put myself through that? I don't.
Well, but you did have to put so what was that experience of crossing over between Scrubs and the middle? Because you did, did you just get offered the middle, or did you eventually have to go out and start auditioning again?
As it turns out, yes, I had to audition, but it was the first thing I auditioned for after Scrubs. We might not have been done shooting Scrubs.
I don't think you were. Yeah, or from what I was reading, I don't think you were. But was it one of those things that they didn't know if it was going to get picked up, so you had to audition to be in second position, or?
No, I knew I was done with Scrubs.
Okay.
In fact, we shot a series finale after 8 seasons. The end.
Yeah.
And then in between, all of a sudden,
Yeah.
For various reasons, they decided to do it again, but placed it at a medical school, like a teaching college. And so a handful of the actors came back,
Scrubs
but
interns,
not others.
yeah.
Scrubs interns,
Which you
yeah.
did, I think, an episode of. Yeah.
Just a one appearance to button the thing. And so I was contractually free to do another show, and the middle came up. And
do you remember your mentality going into that? Because usually how it works, it seems like you'll have like the people that are lucky enough to have a show that goes past 5 seasons. Sometimes they don't get another opportunity at that point, or they get out there. They definitely are auditioning, but nothing really clicks for them again. Do you remember your mentality at the time?
Yes, I'm well aware of that. That you can, if you want to, spend some time doing this, turn on the television and switch from, movie to TV show to whatever, and just look and an actor you recognize until you realize I have not seen that person since.
Yeah.
Liked him very much on this show, and I've never seen him since, or in this movie.
I watch Cheers all the time. Like I still watch on Netflix, and I was just remembered. I loved it even as a kid, and then remember that ended, and I was like, "Where's, why doesn't Norm have his own show? Why doesn't Cliff?
Well, they try.
Yeah,
and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. Ted Danson, good Lord, how many shows has he been the lead on? And of course, Woody Harrelson took off. But no, I'm well aware of that. I've always, and sometimes, by the way, people are either they're perfectly happy and they move to a ranch in Idaho or something, or they're now directing, or there are reasons that people move on. Sometimes that that was their one chance and the role that fit them perfectly, and that's going to be pretty much it, because they're not going to go back and play cop number 2. And it won't be cast that way.
Again with co-stars.
Yeah, you're right. You can't, because you're a recognizable face, and the people aren't going to cast you as that. So being well aware that is the path many actors find themselves on, I was eager to not be known just as the janitor. As lucky as I was to be that, I wanted to be something else too. And
was there a thought in your head also of like, I'd actually like to. God, I don't know how to say. Like, I'd like to have more lines. I'd like to be a bigger part of some. I mean,
sure.
Is there any? Is that what you were gunning for, or?
Yeah. I suppose so.
I don't think I asked that correctly, but it's just one of those. You were so good at that, but it was a very specific thing.
Yeah, very specific and unique. There's not. I don't know another role on TV that you could say is like that.
Yeah. And who you play in the middle is not like that.
It's not like that at all. It's very straightforward, and I was happy to do that.
That's okay, Axel. You tried.
What? No, it's not. It's not all right. What's the matter with you? Why aren't you yelling at me?
Why would I yell at you?
Because I had to drop 3 classes.
It's your life, Axel.
Oh, stop saying that.
What do you want me to say? That you should stop goofing around in college and start taking it more seriously?
Yeah.
You should spend more time studying and less time partying?
Duh.
That you should realize the decisions you make now are going to determine the rest of your life, so you better think them through?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I'm not going to say that. You're not ours anymore. It's your life now. It's up to you how it all goes.
Well, thanks for the heads up. That would have been great to know before I screwed it up. When were you planning on telling me?
Hey, you want to be an adult? Be an adult.
Fine. I'll meet with my advisor as soon as I get back to school and figure out how I can make up these credits. Is that what you want?
It doesn't matter what I want. It's what you want.
Oh, what game are you playing?
There's no game, Axel.
Is this part of the game? You saying there's no game?
For one thing, it's here's this new show. Patricia Heaton is the star of it. You'd play her husband. Fantastic. That's a big step up, and a great opportunity. And I don't know if you know this. They had done a pilot of that the year before that didn't go. But then they said, pretty much like the network or studio said, but stick around, to the creators of the show. And a year later, maybe it was 2, said, we got an idea. If you can find someone else to play the lead, let's do this again. Let's reboot this.
Yeah.
And so they did it this second time, and it flew. But that's a rare thing.
Yeah.
For a pilot to get a second chance.
So you play a father in the middle, and was there anything that anything that stood off shooting this pilot? Did you? Actors a lot of times don't, like, they go from thing to thing, but they're not like, oh, that was just another job. Or like, do you feel magic? Do you feel something when it clicks? Do you know inside?
At the pilot, well, I knew it wasn't bad. Scrubs, I knew was good.
Yeah.
That was a really good pilot. With this, I don't remember thinking that. I don't remember thinking one way or the other about its chances. But I heard later, like when it got picked up to have a first season, someone said, "Oh, congratulations," because that was kind of a dark horse or underdog or whatever. I said, "Oh, were we?" I didn't know that. I never have my ear to the ground.
Yeah, you're not reading the trades every day.
No, I don't know anything. And so, okay, great. And then I think we got lucky to get a chance in the first place, and then it worked out because the kids could act.
Yeah.
It's a show about, there's a million shows about families, and a lot of them are really carried by the dad and mom. Sometimes just one of them. Well, Patty came from that.
Everybody Loves Raymond. Yeah,
Raymond. It was the kid. They had kids, but how often did they? I don't even know what their voices sounded like. So in this case, the child actors could actually carry some weight, and that made a big difference.
So yeah, it's almost like a really nice car. You're like, oh, this car can even go faster than we thought it could. It's like because everybody has their unique thing that they bring to it, and you start finding that over the seasons. Because this went over 200 episodes, right?
Yeah.
I remember because my parents love watching it, and I watched it with my niece and nephew. And were you shocked when it kept going season after season?
Yeah. Yep. It was, for a while, you could tell, there was no reason to cancel it for a while there. But then it looked like around season 6, that would probably be it. Because, for various reasons. But for one thing, the kids were getting older, and, I don't know, there was a small bit of internal turmoil, nothing serious. But it just seemed like people were ready to move on.
Yeah.
And then it just got a second boost of energy. And is it? Yes, it's 9, right?
Yeah, 9. Yeah.
I lost track. 9 years, and that's not unheard of. It is uncommon, though. Yeah, I was because Patty. We were talking about this once. Patricia Heaton, I call her Patty.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, go ahead. She had come off of Raymond. Of course, she was much more important to that than I was to Scrubs, but nevertheless, we both had come off of a long-running show and then went on to another long-running show. And we wondered, how often does this happen? And the answer is, it happens.
Yeah.
It's not, Halley's Comet or anything. It happens more than you might realize or guess. But still, you're very lucky to be on that list. Someone showed me, or I looked at, you said the thing about so many years in a row or whatever that I've been on.
Yeah, like 18 years. It was something, yeah.
Yeah, or this many episodes and so on now. It's fantastic with 2 different shows and so on. To be in rare company like that. Here's the thing: why it doesn't go to my head. I am on that list. Happy to be there. I am by far the least famous person to have ever done that. The other names are like Kelsey Grammer or no, I can't even think of them. Who else would it be? Ted Danson. People who have been on many shows.
Does that matter to you?
Larry Hagman.
Larry, yeah, you're a very Larry Hagman down. No, but does that even matter to you? Like, and I don't know if I necessarily completely agree, but does that matter to you in terms of like fame or celebrity or anything like that?
No, I think I'm about where I want to be.
Yeah,
I'm okay where I am. I don't. People might recognize me in a restaurant or something, but people might recognize me in a restaurant or on the street or something. But they don't, traffic doesn't stop for me,
Yeah.
Which, and who needs that?
Well, it is. I was driving to work today, and I realized I drive every day this way, and I happened to look up, and you're plastered on the side of Warner Brothers Studios.
Oh, yeah.
For the middle billboard. There's like a huge middle billboard, and I was like, whoa, that's got to be.
You've never seen that before?
Well, I mean, I'm usually just in my head singing or listening to a podcast.
Yeah. See that. As I said earlier about working at Steppenwolf, thinking this is a career achievement that if nothing else comes, at least I can say I did this. And I think that's the way I look at things generally. The billboard on the side of Warner Brothers. That's a nice thing to.
That's neat.
Can you imagine that ever happening? And
you're right next to like Batman. Like it's like huge.
I know. Yeah, you must have done something right.
Yeah.
Because this thing happened. But I don't strive very much or think, okay, I got this, now I want that. I really don't. I just want to keep working. I'm not aiming for anything really. I think that's the way to grow bitter and frustrated. If you have a great job, it's what you always wanted to do, but no one's giving you an award for it, and so you're going to be upset.
Yeah.
I think that's a terrible decision. And
it's a hard way to live your life.
That's what I'm saying. And that something inside us has to keep you moving forward, or stay hungry or motivated, but not desperate or I don't know, unsatisfied. I'm fine the way I am. I'm not going to get to the very top of the mountain. I'm fine right here.
Yeah.
About 2/3 up, look around and say, well, this is pretty good.
Yeah. And I know we only got like 10 more minutes, so I kind of want to get to a couple other things. Okay. So nine seasons, or 9 seasons of The Middle, I believe, over 200 episodes. It ends, and then so there's this show that comes out, I think, in this 2019, in the spring of 2019.
Is that what it is?
I think when I was reading, but it's a multicam on NBC called Abby's. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Mm-hmm. What did you guys already film all 13 episodes, and they're just? No,
we only did the pilot. I think we go to work in September, and I heard 12 episodes, and then we're mid-season. I didn't know, but the spring of next year sounds an awful long time
that would be
away.
Great if I'm just telling you, and you know what? You get Saturdays off, and this is what's great about it.
Yeah. I don't know about spring, is that?
I could be completely wrong.
What is usually considered mid-season? Because the shows come out in September.
Well,
Wouldn't
fall,
it be more likely
fall,
to be January?
They said 2009. Well, maybe that it would be January, but I guess maybe they consider January spring in Hollywood. We'll take a poll, but
I don't know. I don't know what the plan is, but I do know that it's something different.
Yeah, it's multicam. So far you've been really successful in single cam, and we do a lot of multicam here. What was the experience on that pilot like? Why did you have a decision to I want to try multi this time, or was it just the right part for you?
Well, yeah, a lot of I wasn't flooded with offers, put it that way. But the ones that I saw, for the most part, were basically playing. I played Mike Heck on The Middle, and it was Mike Heck in Minnesota.
Yeah.
He in the 1970s.
We know he can do it. Yeah,
right. It was playing the same thing, and so I didn't want to repeat that. The flannel shirt, stern father, but lovable.
Yeah, very lovable.
So I just wanted to do something else, and this was the one that was not like that. It's pretty much, even after the pilot, it's pretty open what my character will be like, but
and it takes place in a bar, right?
It takes place in a backyard bar, which is illegal, and that's the plot of the first episode. But it's basically what you need for any show, a place where people gather.
Yeah,
as you might ask for a suggestion in an improv show. I was going to say Cheers as an example. I believe that took place in a bar. And you know what someone is going to say? Oh, it's a rip-off of Cheers.
Yeah.
Say, okay.
We've seen it.
Yeah. And that show went off the air 25 years ago. Is it too soon? Too soon to do another show in a bar?
It really is still, it's part of the zeitgeist still. So it's,
I saw that the pilot of Cheers, first episode, I remember doing it, and that was because I know I was 22. That was 35 years ago. So I think it's okay to do another show.
Yeah, no, it's just the right time right now.
Yeah. So yes, it'll be something different to do this show called Abby's. I hope I hope it's good. I hope it succeeds. The people behind it are talented and successful people. So that was what interested me.
Yeah.
And we'll just see what happens. But as I said, it could go 5 years or it could not last.
You have a really zen. Do you meditate? No. You seem very zen and
Well, that's
collected.
accidental. That's accidental. I think I don't know. I have it's not all to the good. I don't get too high or too low.
Yeah. What you said it's important to have something that kind of drives you or keeps you. What does that now for you?
At the moment, my fantasy baseball team. Is that sad? I should have said, watching the children succeed and learn. No. No, I don't. No, I don't. I lead a pretty simple life. I'm not. I do and always have watched a lot of television, although it's different now. I don't tend to just watch network shows, although the TV is always on. It's usually on the news or something like that, or sports. But
what do you love right now on TV? What do you like, or Netflix, or what? What's the last thing you binged?
I'll tell you what, Westworld, I enjoy.
You understand it?
For the most part, a lot of times when I go to watch it the next week, and I actually do wait the week.
I do too.
I'll think I don't remember what happened last week at all. I don't remember, I recall what happened. But I realize it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I think it's really well done. This cool futuristic thing. It's really well done, and it's moving slowly enough that you get the idea. You don't have to remember what Game of Thrones. I can't keep straight.
This is a lot of names.
I just don't. Who's married to who? Who's dead? I don't know.
I almost feel like, there's especially before Westworld, they'll show the last time on Westworld with the 2 minutes.
Thank goodness they do that.
I know. That's what I'm like, okay, I get it. Let's go. Right.
And
I go an hour and then I have to wait till the next week to understand what I just watched. But no, it's a entrancing show. That's
what else I watch. I don't think there is a show, and I shouldn't say this because I'm usually the one who's on a network show on Tuesday night or Wednesday night or something. But I can't think of a show that I watch, that's on Tuesdays on ABC.
The way we watch TV has completely changed.
It's completely changed,
different
and
now.
I'm way behind as far as that goes. It's not like because hey, I'm busy streaming on Hulu or something. I don't do any of that.
Yeah,
I don't watch anything on my phone or computer.
I used to set my VCR. I was the nerd that was taping things on VHS and switching out tapes and how many things can I get on?
That's as far as the technology went.
Yeah.
And then for a short time it was, I can't even think of what it was called, TiVo.
TiVo, yeah, that was...
Which is a miracle.
And then it turns out cable companies stole TiVo's idea, so now you can just get it with your cable box. And do you ever want to play a killer? Do you want to go on hour-longs? Is there any thoughts like that?
Yeah, I thought about that. That would be an interesting thing to do. I would.
I shouldn't just say killer. It's probably more deep.
A villain.
Yeah.
Or I thought. Remember a couple years ago on HBO the Detective, True Detective. Is that what it was?
Yeah,
called?
True Detective. Yeah, on HBO.
Which really was nice. That with speaking of Woody Harrelson and McConaughey, right?
Yeah. That
was really cool. And I thought, boy, that'd be nice to do something like that. And yeah, it would. But they're not going to choose me for that. Those guys are movie stars, and if movie stars are willing to do television, they're going to hire the movie stars. And so I have to keep my aims realistic.
But at the same time, I think it's then the perfect thing because you are at this, you're kind of known as this dad with tough dad, but wouldn't you like to see? You can kind of go on that stunt casting a little bit and then flip people's expectations. I don't know. I get excited about castings like that.
I would also, that would be me going back to that was the kind of thing I was more likely to audition for before I got any notoriety for television. That I would more likely to audition for a killer than a lover.
Yeah,
for instance. So that would be a nice twist down the road to play something like that. And people always say it's more interesting to play the villain than the hero, and we'll see. But I think we'll find out what it's like to be an older actor, and thank goodness I have some sort of a foothold in terms of that I might be recognized or something. And so maybe to get a chance at something like that in the future as I turn into an old man. Now when I was young, I considered this an old man.
Yeah,
Now you think, well,
but you never feel
second.
you don't feel.
Right. Let's say until you're at least 70, maybe are you an old man? But I mean, Harrison Ford, for God's sake, is in his 70s.
Who you worked with twice now? Yeah.
I know.
Which by the Indiana Jones, you guys, the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Anyways, I know we got to let you go. Any last words of advice for actors? Anything that you tell actors that come up to you and ask for advice?
Oh gosh, it's very hard. I think to say never quit is bad advice. Some people probably should. Get out of the way so the rest of us can have a clear path. But you'll know whether to quit or not. I never quit, but It's because I had no other plan. I didn't want to quit. But it wasn't in me to stop trying. There's nothing else I want to do.
Yeah.
So I did, I can say as far as encouragement goes that I didn't get a breakthrough. I had to sweat it until I was 40, and then I got a break, and it paid off, and it held up. I didn't know that was coming. No one said, just make it to 40 and you'll be fine. In fact, it could be the opposite. If that break never comes, you're 40, heading for 50, and you're scared because now you're going to run out of, your body doesn't work well anymore. I don't know, at some point. But I can't think of any advice. It's if you're going to stick with it, just stick with it.
Yeah, I think this whole hour has been the best advice. And thank you so much for taking your time. I cannot wait for our actors to hear this.